This is a Metalflake paint job that I'm going to show you the basic steps to. I did the roof and a cooler to match. The rest of the truck has a nice patina, so just going to leave it. The roof was really rusty and really pitted, so it was a good project to make the roof look nice, but still match the rest of the truck. The cooler was one of the old green metal Coleman coolers. This was just the lid to it. The area by the visor above the windshield was separating, so I clamped it and tacked it all together. I put a bead of seam sealer all the way over those to hide it. This was the worst part to me, getting the whole roof down to bare metal with all the pits and seams. I sandblasted, used abrasive discs, wire wheel, little of everything to get it down. Here I took some body glaze and just skim coated the whole roof to make sure I got all the pits and imperfections filled. Had to do this a couple times. After you put this on and let it dry, you want to sand it nice and flat. You can see how uneven it was by all the different colors. Here my daughter was helping me with the cooler. Did some body work on it to at least get it decent, get it flat. And then we shot some 2K primer on it. I did this job in the winter and I don't have a heated shop, so I kind of made a little makeshift paint booth here by using an easy up with some plastic sheeting and went around it, and it was enough to keep it warm. These were the sprayers I used. I used the cheap Harbor Freight purple handle $15 gun to shoot the primer and sealer. This flake was a medium-sized flake, .015, so I used an old DeVilbiss suction gun that has a 1.8 tip, and I put the flake in Intercoat, and it seemed to spray out of there fine. Here are a few of the supplies I used. I had some Sherwin-Williams black Basecoat, some Keystone Key Quick Clear. The flake is a brand called Blake's Flakes. I used a copper and a dark green. Here I sprayed it with a 2K epoxy primer. Here I used some cheap spray paint and just sprayed all over it for a guide coat to sand it. Probably went a little overboard on this, but it all got sanded off anyway. Once I got it all sanded flat, then it was ready for some sealer, and then black base coat over that. Did the same on the cooler also. Here's the flake that I used. I thought it worked pretty well. It was hunter green and copper mostly, and I added just a little bit of black flake to it. I mixed it pretty much as thick as I could get the flake without it clogging the gun. So here's what it looks like after 3 coats of the Intercoat with the flake mixed in it. You just want to make sure you get it nice and even. It's not really going to look or feel smooth. It's going to be rough to the touch and have flakes sticking up all over the place. The next thing, you'll just bury them all in clear. This is 2 or 3 wet coats of clear over the top of that. This is easy when it's on a surface that's flat, like a roof or a hood, because you don't have to worry about runs. Once this dries really good, you'll have to sand this flat. This takes quite a bit of work sometimes, with the thick clear that's on top of it. And you want to really be careful using a colored flake, because if you sand through, the part that you sand through, the colored flake will turn chrome and it'll be really obvious. When you're sanding the clear like this, it's almost like having a guide coat. You'll sand it, it'll get dull, and anywhere that's not sanded low enough, you'll see little dimples that are still shiny. You want to make sure you sand till all of those are gone and everything is dull. Now that it's all sanded flat, it's ready for clear. So you'll just want to put 2 or 3 coats of clear on top. This is when it really starts to look good. and you can see all the work that you put into it. This is the best part of the job to me. All the steps before this, everything is kind of dull and doesn't really look that great, but when you get that first coat of clear on there, everything starts to shine. You can really see the flake. You start to get the depth. And here's the cooler lid again. Once you let all the clear dry, then start to color sand and buff and get it all finished up. I had a friend help me buff this because it's something that I hadn't done too much of before this, and I really didn't want to mess it up. Here it is, all buffed and finished, nice and shiny. This is still in the garage. Still has a good sparkle to it, but nothing like in the sunlight. I actually did this project a few years ago. I learned a lot on it. This was my first Metalflake job, and it was actually my first time using Basecoat Clearcoat paint. Maybe 20-25 years ago, I painted a few vehicles with acrylic enamel, so I didn't have much experience with this. I thought it turned out pretty good. I've done a few more projects since then and keep learning. This is just a hobby for me.